For the next step, what we're going to have a look at is our hip roof shape. To get started with this one, what we're going to do is make sure that this design is empty except for our wall panels. We'll insert a hip roof on top of our walls right there, just by going to the Auto Roof this level tool. After clicking that tool, you'll see you have generated a hip roof. If you have a different shape coming out for your rectangle shaped building right there, if it has a gable end of either side, in that case, what you need to do is to go to your Wall Designer tab, make sure to select all of your walls, then right click, go to Properties and make sure that every single one of them has the load bearing function activated. With that said, we'll insert our first set of hip trusses by going to our bottom chord, top chord tools right there. As we've mentioned during the gable tutorial, we'll use the top chord to make sure that we select the correct roof planes that will be shaping our hip roof. In this case, we need to make sure that we select the hip side first, so that triangular bit, then the two sides right there. After completing the selection, we're going to see that this tool right there gets activated. Without having this correctly selected, in this case, we'll do a reset on the selection. If we do the selection incorrectly like this, you'll notice that this tool does not get activated. So please make sure that you start with the triangular part, in this case the hip side first, then the two sides right there, and then we get to the Auto Hip Set tool and we'll click on that. In this case, I'm going to insert my hip set just to give you some clarity of what these settings mean and what they control on your trusses. The first point we have is the first girder jack offset. In this case, my girder jack offset is set to be 150 millimeters. What it actually controls, if you have a look at the CJ right there, that is our corner jack. The J is our jack truss, and the G being our girder truss right there, you'll notice it has the first connection being the corner jack on our girder. The next one is our jack truss. This is considered being our first jack truss connection to our girder. So as it states right there, the first girder jack offset is set to be 150 millimeters, and this dimension is set from that first connection for the corner jack to that first jack truss, measured from the center of the corner to the center of the jack truss. So let's zoom in there slightly. You'll see it goes from that corner connection there to the center of your jack truss right there, being 150 millimeters in this case. The next setting we have a look at is the first end jack. Now, as mentioned within the project settings for the trusses, I'm going to close this window down and open my project settings, then go to my trusses, roof settings, and on the right hand side, you'll notice we've got a minimum span set to be 200 millimeters. I'm going to click OK and click OK again. And with my current settings for the minimum span to be 200 millimeters, it is going to give you a measurement for the first end jack from the external side of the overhang to the center of my first jack truss from that point. In this case, if I select minimum, it is going to take into consideration that 200 millimeters being the smallest I can create a truss on this project. And if I click OK, it is going to place in my new set of trusses with these settings right there. Firstly, I need to make sure that I have no trusses currently inserted right there. So I'm just going to use the undo key right there until I have no trusses on this project. Redo the selection, auto hip this project, and I'm going to click on minimum, and you'll see it automatically corrects that dimension to use the 200 millimeter minimum span for the truss. Click OK. And you'll notice this is now a lot closer to the end of my overhang, with the measurement now being taken from the edge right there to the center of my first jack truss. Right below that, we have the girder offset box right there. It is going to indicate a measurement from the edge of your wall to the apex of your roof. The apex, also known as the first starting point for the ridge or the highest point of your truss. In this case, it is saying it is 3 meters from the edge of my wall to the edge of my apex. And with this setting, you have the ability to control the spacing and the set position of your girder placement right there. Now, in this case, we are placing the girder on the first position away from the apex. You can see with that dimension right next to it, that dimension is indicative from the outside of your wall to the position of your girder right there. If you place this on the second position, as I'll show you in this next example, so we're going to the opposite end right there, insert my hip tool, and we're going to place it on the second position, as you'll see there, number 2, and this is the distance away from the end of the wall. And we'll click OK. You can see now the difference where the girder is placed on the first position away from the apex versus the opposite end being on the second position with a common truss separating those two spots. On the next setting, we'll open up the hip layout window again. After using the software for quite some time, you get to a point where you start understanding how the engineering works for the amount of plies on the trusses. If you go take a look on our knowledge base page right there, you can see that we have some details for 2-ply trusses being connected. Now, to show you what it changes on the actual design, I'm going to place this on the opposite end right there and use my auto hip tool. We're going to be using the 2-ply option for the next one and click OK. And you can see it is thicker than the original truss indicated right there. That means it is now a 2-ply truss. We can undo and remove that option. Next, we'll have a look at the girder drop type right there. Now, what the actual girder drop type does, in this case, I've set mine to be extended for the corner jacks. If we have a look at this in 3D, I'm going to hide some of my roof planes by selecting and using the spacebar key on your keyboard. You can see this girder truss right there on the top chord has a lower height than the actual roof profile. This allows for the jack and the corner jack top chords to extend across and fully complete that roof structure right there to allow for the purlin connection. We also call this a truncated truss in some aspects as well. Now, if we go and change this up slightly to allow only for the jack top chords, I will show you what this looks like in the settings. We generate the hip and we only allow for the extended jack top chords. Click OK. Project mode, project view. And if we have a look at this in 3D, I can hide my roof planes, pan it around slightly. And you can see from the truncated part right there, it is not allowing that corner jack to be extended across my truncated part right there. If we completely remove that drop type, just to show you for the next example, and we'll say no jack extensions, project view, you can hide those roof planes again, and you can see the jack and the corner jack top chords are currently clashing with that top chord of the girder. So when you do hip trusses, always make sure that your settings are correct from the starting point in your project settings. When you go to your F5 option in the roof tab right there, just to make sure that the default drop type is correctly selected. We'll make everything visible by clicking on the All button. And for the next option, I'm going to undo to remove the ones on the right hand side. We'll place them again using the correct settings. There we go. Now, to finish off the truss placement in the center part of the roof, what we'll use is the same tool that we used for the gable roof option. So we'll go to the bottom and top chord selection, select the 2 roof planes, use the select multiple trusses tool. We'll start the selection on the outside of my C1 truss, and we'll extend it all the way across over my C2 truss. This window pops up saying, to confirm, reprofile the selected trusses. We do not want this at this moment, so we can click no. All that does is reprofiles the trusses to your current selection of your roof profiles. It is currently correct, so that is why we only click no. Next, we'll go to the Add Evenly Spaced Trusses Between Two Selected tool right there. And exactly as it sounds in the tool, it adds trusses between two selected points with an even spacing using your default measurement as the maximum dimension on that tool. We can have a look at this in 3D. Can hide the roof planes right there. Now, apart from engineering these trusses, we have completed the inserting part of this roof structure. Just a side note, as you can see, these uprights within the girded truss right there are automatically generated if you have a connection truss joining on whatever truss it might be. It will automatically generate these uprights just to allow for the connection points to be correctly done. Now, when you join an oncoming truss to another truss, what you'll generally use is exactly the same profile as the current truss profile you're using. Now you can take a look at the detail that I'm bringing up right now on the screen. It is exactly the same profile that you'll connect to the existing truss first, and then slot your oncoming truss into the profile, and then join that by using Tek screws. Now that we've completed a hip roof, we're going to take a look at something a little bit more tricky, is the L-shape roof. Thereafter, we'll make a design available for you guys to practice and to send back to us for some feedback on your current progress.